What if I told you that there is a product in our country that we have full access to that would increase the jobs available, that would boost our economy? It would be a product that we could tax for however much we wanted, which would be a full profit, and that also had better medical benefits than what we have available now. The product I'm referring to is marijuana, and the reason I think that marijuana should be legalized in this country. Before my speech is over, I would like to go over a brief history onto why marijuana is illegal in the first place. I'd like to go over a couple of the benefits medically that would be a giant boost and be cheaper than what we have right now. I would also like to go over some of the other resources that we could get out of marijuana. And just a quick fact that 2016, according to the New York Times, 443,000 people died from cigarettes and 88,000 died from alcohol-related deaths. Alcohol is also the third leading preventable cause of death in the U.S. There have currently been 0 overdoses or any kind of death related to marijuana, which is already one benefit to both of those. According to the Huffington Post, in 1929, a man named Harry Anslinger was put in charge of the Department of Prohibition in Washington. When he was put in charge, the main thing he was in charge of at the time was alcohol prohibition going on. But it wasn't going well. There was a lot of violence, a lot of crime. The gang and a lot of other criminals were literally running these neighborhoods, and they were in charge. They were even above the police. And when he finally decided to make alcohol legal again, he was left with this giant void, and he was getting a lot of pressure, and he didn't have anything else to kind of fight against. And even though before he considered marijuana was an absurd fallacy to causing any kind of violent behavior in any person, he decided that he needed something to go against during the time so that he wouldn't get any kind of political backlash. And he chose to go against marijuana, which he also gave, there were 5 reasons which he felt that marijuana was bad for everybody and it should be illegal. He claimed that if one ingested or inhaled any kind of marijuana product, that they would first fall into a delirious rage, and then they would second be gripped by the dreams of an erotic character. Next, they would lose the power of all their corrected thoughts. 4, they would completely go insane. And then 5 would be the person would become what he called a wild beast, which he literally compared to something that would scare Frankenstein if they ever ran into each other. He didn't have a lot of weight to go with his argument against marijuana, and at the time there was a case in Florida where a young boy named Victor Licate ended up killing his entire family with an axe, and a lot of people didn't really know what to make of it, and so Harry saw this as his opportunity to use marijuana as something to get the people wild up and to put fear in people's hearts to get them against this. He had no, like as I said, he had no supporting cast of anything. He asked 30 scientists at the time if this was possible, if marijuana could make somebody act out this violent act. And out of the 30, 29 said no. But the one was good enough for him. So he used that one person and he put them in front of the entire world and showed how one scientist said that yes, marijuana could do this, even though 29 already said no to it. Harry was so against marijuana at the time that he ordered all other countries to ban marijuana, which at the time a lot of them disagreed with him and a lot of them didn't want to do it. One example of that was Mexico, who felt that only doctors should be in charge of any kind of drug policy. And Harry was not a doctor at the time, and he did not like that Mexico was going against him at this time and that they disagreed with him. So he kept trying to put the pressure on him to go against marijuana. They continued to fight him until eventually he got the U.S. to completely stop all supply of legal painkillers going to Mexico. And they had no choice but to finally go against it too and fight. They considered it their own war on drugs. Years later, actually, a lot of scientists got together and actually reviewed Victor Lacate's records, all his meetings with psychiatrists and other doctors like that, and there was never one indication or one note about him on any kind of marijuana, any kind of cannabis products. They actually, a year before he committed these crimes, his psychiatrist suggested that he be institutionalized, but his parents refused. And there's still nothing about marijuana or anything like that. And that's kind of just the brief history of it, just to show that the reason marijuana was illegal in the first place was all on a kind of sketchy terms. As of right now, there are 8 states that are already legalized for recreational use. Washington, Oregon, Nevada, Massachusetts, Maine, Colorado, California, and Alaska are all completely legal under recreational use. And in the first year that they have become recreational, they have seen skyrocket in price, and they've also seen all their crimes go down. After the first full year, the marijuana arrests dropped 90% in Colorado alone, and in 2015 there were 643,121 people that were arrested for marijuana-related charges, and 89% of those were for possession only. So that just kind of gives into a picture of really how much crime goes down and how much we even save on not having to incarcerate somebody. Colorado in 2015 made $996 million off of all marijuana sales, medical and recreational, and any kind of products that go along with it. Just last year, they're already up to $1.1 billion, which this is just one state. If we had the entire country, these are the kind of profits they would be seeing. This isn't just a fluke, these are the numbers in all of them. And that comes from Fortune.com. Now, I wanted to get into kind of the more important part, which is the medical benefits of marijuana, which I think is the main thing that people would like to legalize it for, which I think is the most important thing. And according to BusinessInside.com, marijuana actually improves the lungs, which a lot of people will say how marijuana will give you lung cancer. That was one of the cons against it. But in 2015, the study for risk in heart disease, they tested 5,115 young adults. They tested them for 20 years and found that the people who smoked cigarettes, their lungs decreased, but the ones who only smoked marijuana, there's actually an increase. And so that kind of goes against one of the big cons, which was that marijuana causes cancer. And marijuana actually helps with cancer because they found that there's a chemical found in marijuana that stops cancer from spreading. There's a gene called a 1D or ID1, and it actually found that it's a very rapid and very aggressive growing cancer cell, but the marijuana was actually stopping this from growing altogether. And some other things that marijuana does, it controls epilepsy. People who have dealt with epilepsy, they were having hundreds of seizures a day, and they would start with these marijuana oils or things like that, and they would literally cut it down to maybe 5 a week. There was THC would control the seizures by binding to the brain cells, and it was also responsible for controlling excitability and regulating relaxation, which was a huge help for everybody. There's even a lot of cases of people moving across the country just to go to these states that have legalized marijuana because it is a cheaper alternative and it is proven to work a lot better than what they have right now. Marijuana also helps with glaucoma. It helps with arthritis, just to name a few other things that people who can benefit from. And another thing that I think a lot of people don't realize is that hemp comes from marijuana. It's the same species, although it's not all it's not the same altogether. It has literally 0.03% of the THC, so there are no effects from inhaling it or ingesting it in any way. It is literally just beneficial in we can get clothes from it, we can get paper from it, and things like that. We can build things out of it, ropes and things like that. So it's a lot more beneficial than people realize. Also, from the hemp seeds and flowers, we can use those for food and just our body care altogether. It's really good for us. And it was actually last year the HIA, which is the Hemp Industrial Association, estimated the total retail value of all hemp products in the U.S. were $620 million. But unfortunately, because marijuana is illegal here, that was all imported. So that's $620 million that we could have all profited off of in this country alone. And like as I said, the hemp has no THC, so there are literally no effects. It would just benefit us in the building. And because it's in the Controlled Substance Act of 1970, which classified all forms of cannabis illegal, that makes it completely impossible to get. And these are the reasons why I think that marijuana should be legalized by now. If you look back on history, they go from saying that it was something that created a monster to now people are realizing that it is actually a lot more beneficial and that we can get a lot more things out of it and a lot more things that will help us and our country. As I've said before, marijuana, it will help our economy. It'll give us thousands and thousands of jobs in this country. It'll give us millions and possibly billions of dollars of revenue every single year. We can benefit from it medically. It'll be cheaper than chemotherapy kind of treatments. People with eating disorders, people with cancer who they just can't quite eat. Marijuana helps with all of these different things. And I think it's something that should be legalized worldwide in this country.